Dr. Kevin.
I know, right? So we are live. So let me see if we can get our intro going.
Doom, 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 doom. In a world of, I better stop that before I get whiplash.
I got the intro. So let me.
In a world of divisiveness, we bring you diversity. In a world of hate, we bring you love. In a world of fear, we inspire you to live. And now, laughing, loving, and alive with your hosts Rain Thomas, Elmer J. Howard, and Dr. Kevin.
Hello, hello, hello. I am Steve Jobs.
Oh, that's somebody great to be. And here comes, I see his reflection in the window. All sorts of crackling and crashing. Do we want to start that again, Mr. Jobs? The Cookie Monster. Okay, so we know who you are.
And okay. You guys sound far away.
We hear you okay.
Okay. Hold on. Let me see if I can
all that
fix
heavy
this,
breathing.
I'm not hearing you guys well at all.
Like some sick porn flick. And then like the Cookie Monster showed up. Hi, Char. Hey, Char, look at my new shirt.
So, Rain, why don't you introduce yourself or whoever you are tonight?
You know what? I am one of my friends that I respect a lot. Her name is Margaret Carey, and Margaret is the original Tinkerbell model for Disney. You know, the little Tinkerbell that comes on, and that would be my friend Margaret Carey. Merry early Christmas.
And who do we have in the Cookie Monster shirt?
Cookie! Me ate your gift. Cookie. And Cookie Monster needs to go grab Cookie. Keep talking.
Oh, yummy. Yeah, he's acting like he doesn't want to be on here with us tonight. Poor Roger. He just doesn't even know what's happening. He's probably in the background like, how do I disconnect?
Yeah, so Rain, how has your last few weeks been?
My last few weeks have been awesome. Went to Hollywood a couple of weeks ago to, Warner Brothers called and I got my Hulk toothbrush and I went out there. It was great.
Nice. Anything you can tell us about?
No, can't tell you. But you'll know who it is, and when it posts, or when it's starting to show, I'll post that. But it was really fun. It was really exciting. I had a great time. Glad they called. And, I'm looking forward to this being the beginning of many calls. You can see Char's been drinking for all of you out there reading our chats. I just want to let you know that it's Sunday. She's at home. She's drinking, and it's okay, Char. I still love you. Where Dr. Kim, where did you go get the cookies from? Connecticut?
Probably.
My goodness, what in the world? How was your last couple of weeks there, Elmer?
Pretty good. Let's see, not much else happening. I think I've already told you about the trip to Phoenix, right? For the production accounting that I'm doing for a film. In January.
Told me a snippet, but not a whole lot.
Yeah, so in January 4th through February 5th, I'll be in Phoenix. I'll be in Phoenix doing production accounting for a film. So I get to escape Maine winters for a month, which is nice. And Shar says that Kevin went to Sesame Street to get his cookies.
She's probably very close. Can you tell me how to get it?
Right.
So you're going to be there for a whole month and change. Well, that'll be awesome.
Yeah, I'll be really busy, as you know, on being on a film set, even as the accountant. Sometimes we have to run even longer hours because we have to do, the end of the day stuff when people are bringing us the petty cash and invoices and whatnot. So yeah, it'll be a busy time, but it'll be good. And, doing it as a favor for a friend because, obviously I'd rather be directing, but, this is some extra cash and helping out a friend. So it's a nice thing to do.
What I never understood that term petty cash. There really is no cash that's petty. I never understood. And everywhere I've ever been, I thought when I first started working like eons ago, and they said petty cash, that everybody had an idea petty cash is under $99. And I heard somewhere that it's under a certain amount in different states, because after that's a felony, it's no longer a misdemeanor if you steal it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think for us, I'm setting petty cash. I don't remember what we chose, 250 or 500 or something. But anyway, basically, yeah, petty cash is just in businesses back in the day, it was literally cash they kept in an envelope. So when somebody had to run out, they would give them cash. On set, at least in this film, we have petty cash that way. But also petty cash is there's a account that I will move a certain amount of money over and say, you've got this much in your petty cash account, and it'd be bigger amounts, like $1,000 for the costumes to go out and buy stuff they might need for the day.
Right.
But so yeah, it's petty cash can mean different things depending on what you're referring to.
So petty cash isn't like me and one of my buddies, Whoosh, or 50 Cent, where we get even with people when they don't see us coming. Merry Christmas. Does that cash get really petty? Like the fives don't want to hang out with the tens
because they get petty.
Yes, that's petty cash.
Right. So other than that,
I'm glad you're doing that.
Yeah, and we're getting ready we're raising funds to pay the attorney for the next film. So I'm getting close to having raised enough money for the attorney so that we can go out and talk to the big investors for my next film. So that's moving along. And of course, tax season is going to be coming up. So that'll be keeping me busy starting next year.
Wow. It seems like we were just talking about you doing the tax season stuff. And here we are again talking about tax season.
Well, last year's tax season didn't end until October 15th. So I was talking about that because of the pandemic and the extensions.
Right.
And all that.
Okay.
Really, if you extended your tax return, you had until October 15th to do it. So I was busy with taxes through October.
Yeah, I didn't extend anything. I didn't even know it was an option. I don't play with the IRS. I look at them as Scarface. It's like the original mob. I don't want to play with them. I want them to leave me alone. Just take yours. Don't bother me. I don't want any extensions.
Right.
Not interested. Oh, did you take Dr. Kevin out of the...
I did. I decided we don't need a blank screen there. I can still see him. So when he shows back up in my, down in my little room, I can bring him back into the actual live stream so people can get to see more of our pretty faces.
Okay, I'll go for that. Do you like my background tonight?
Yeah, you're actually at home, right?
I am at home.
You got little stars shining up on the wall.
You know what? Stars for a star is what my friends tell me. It's taken me a while to kind of grasp that, but isn't that what I'm working towards and what you're working towards?
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, tonight's theme is stardom. Right, Rochelle? Right, Shar? Right, Donna Paisley? Right, all the other silent people who are texting me privately instead of in the chat? I'm not going to answer you on my phone. I just want you guys to know it. I know you're watching and doing your thing. You're afraid I'm going to call you out, but I'll call you out when you start texting me on my phone. Right, that's right. Tell them, Char. It's been a good few weeks, I'm waiting for you to put out your big films because, I got my purse ready and my clothes and eating spinach and carrots to keep my memory sharp.
Right. Well, like I said, I'm seriously considering you as the owner of the restaurant for the movie I'm working on. So.
Okay, you hear that, you guys? seriously considering me. That is called a contract among friends. That's what that is called.
and I was gonna. You got something else to say? I was gonna say.
No,
speaking about stars, it may be a good segue for our guest.
Yes, I think so. Because I hope Dr. Kevin's okay. Like ran off to grab cookies, and I understand how yummy cookies can be. Can you see my glasses? Can you see the reflection?
Yeah.
Really?
So I actually semi met our next guests. They were in the same film festival, the short film festival. We were in the Bentonville Film Festival, which is it's a really good film festival. And they decided they did these blocks. We were in the same LGBTQ block, and they decided to, instead of doing separate interviews, which a lot of festivals do, they took our whole block, put us on a Zoom meeting, and interviewed each of the films that were going to be playing in order. And so I stayed through and watched all the interviews. And when I saw Roger's interview, I was blown away. I was excited. They are a fun person. They command the screen. They did their film was called Taffeta. And I don't know if it's still in the festivals like Kings and Queens is, but they can let us know if they still are in the festivals. And I think we also have I see a cat there. So they when I saw them get interviewed, I'm like, I have to have them on our show. I'm like, they would be perfect because Dr. Kevin and Roger's energy is they're gonna have so much fun. Rain, you and I are just gonna sit back and just enjoy this show. So, and I'll read just a little quick bit about. I won't do what I did last week and read a 3-minute bio. People can go to the Facebook if they want to see their full bio. Roger also has rogerqmason.com, and there's more about them on there. But Roger Q. Mason is an award-winning writer, performer, and educator known for using history's lens to highlight the biases that separate rather than unite us. Mason was recently dubbed the Brooklyn Rail, as quickly becoming one of the most significant playwrights of the decade. And that, I believe that's where Taffeta came from. I believe this was a play that you had written, Roger.
Hello, everybody. How are y'all doing?
Okay, before we start any of this, I need to ask a couple of questions because I have to get this right. Okay, so Roger, what do you like to be called? Roger Mason?
Well, my full name is Roger Q. Mason, and my middle name is Quincy. So I've been called all kinds of things over the years.
And tonight will be proof. So you better tell us what to call you.
So I would say Roger is perfect for tonight.
Okay, and I noticed that Elmer kept referring as they. So explain that to me because I want to make sure, and I want the people who are watching to understand because this is inclusive and I like for people to feel inclusive. So please explain that for all the people watching, including myself, who are over 30 and don't really understand they.
Well, so, it's funny because the children taught me what they was, even though I was living it all the time. Growing up, I was always what they now call gender non-binary. Although at the time there was not a term for it. They might, call you all kinds of negative sort of homophobic things, and that would be the stand-in. But for me, there was never a sort of finite definition that masculinity or he, him, his, masculine pronouns, male pronouns, could actually encapsulate not only who I was, but how I spoke, how I behaved, how I felt that I was, and how I manifested. And for a long time, even up till now, I would always be identified as she, her, because my energy many times, and I'm saying this because I'm going to get into the transition. A lot of times I'll be called she, her, and I could have a 5 o'clock shadow on, and I'll still be called she, her. In fact, I remember a couple of years ago, maybe it was longer than that now. There was a woman that was driving me in an Uber, and she didn't really fully see my face because she was driving and I was sitting in the back. And she had called me she, her the whole time. And when she looked back to thank me for being a writer, she was, I had not shaven, and she was all of a sudden very confused because the essence of the individual that she had been conversing with was female or feminine identifying. That's what she had been socialized into identifying as, a feminine or female behavior. And I can't help that. That's not something that I put on. I've always been this way. I did Romeo and Juliet when I was, I would say, 20 years old, and I played the nurse. And I remember some patrons of the theater had me turn around for them after the show. They sat in the lobby and had me turn around because they could not believe that the person they had seen in that show was assigned male or masculine at birth. So I've always lived in a space where I defied and redefined what people understand as gender or gender identity. So when they started coming up with all of this terminology, New York State was one of the great innovators of this, identifying 31 genders outside of the binary, he, him, or she, her. When they started to come up with these terms, I suddenly felt like I had a home because I was baseless and homeless in terms of my identity and my tribe until that time. Now, we have a new issue because, as I'm starting to rise up the ranks, so to speak, in our industry, I now find that people are gendering me as he, him. And I think the reason for that is because they're seeing somebody who's successful or seemingly successful and moving forward. And unfortunately, we identify success and command and authority and ownership with masculine traits. So now all of a sudden, people are saying, oh, he did this and he did that. And I'm watching the transition. I don't know if it's where I sit or where my voice may be landing in the body. I don't know what, or maybe just nothing. But now I'm in a position where people are seeing more of a masculine identity. But I go by they, them, theirs officially because that was the terminology that allowed me to find home.
Excellent. I have people texting saying thank you. They said they were embarrassed to ask. I said, well, that's what keeps us ignorant. Thank you. That clears a lot of things up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things. Hey, Roger Q.
Hi, Dr. Kevin. How are you?
Well, I'm hanging around at fabulous, but I'm trying to work myself up to fantastic.
Well, honey, you ain't got to work towards a feeling if you stay in one.
I've been known to stay in a lot of things.
Baby, don't get me started, honey.
It's one of the things I teach is I teach astrology. And I've taken my whole master class, and I won't use the terms feminine and masculine anymore in the description. I use yin and yang.
Yes.
Because there's yin and energy, which we think of or associate with feminine, but it's the bringing the energy in to work with it. And yang is going out into the energy. And so as you were speaking, what I wondered is, as you are doing more and taking more command roles, if your energy needs to go out more in order to achieve what you need to achieve.
Well, my energy hasn't changed, honey, because I'm still, as Sylvester says, it's still just me. I'm still the same old rag. You remember that from Living Proof? Right before he does, before he sings something special, living something special between ourselves. And so or at least I don't feel as though something different is happening. Now, maybe the way that my momentum is manifesting onto me and through me is being registered by other people as something that is more of an outward,
yes,
direction. It's funny because I was in a masterclass, a yogic masterclass yesterday with the great James Morrison. And one of the students in the class was asking, well, how do you balance between intuitive yogic practice and goal-oriented? And what he was talking about essentially was mantra of acceptance. And he didn't articulate it in those words because I could see the student kind of not understanding the esoterics of it quite so, concretely. But he was saying the key is to just acknowledge and accept and embrace the unknown. And who you are and where you are at any given moment. And I think it's that place of wonderment from which I always come.
Well, the thing is, we all have it all.
Yeah.
In any given moment, and a lot of times when I'm working with like my healing students or things like this, I go, the real power is to be able to go in this quickly from your yin to your yang or your yang to your yin energy by what is best in that situation to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. And so, it's like I do work with them to basically eradicate the barrier between the left and right brain.
Yeah.
You need to like have that flow. Now, I'm a big proponent of, and my greatest teacher taught me that, all structure was created to transcend. However, we cannot transcend what we do not have. So, when we can put the structure in to say, I understand the structure now, the whole goal is to evolve it.
That's
to
right.
expand past it. And that's where you I would think you might learn a pose, but then you would intuitively take it to some place that is uniquely yours because your energy is like nobody else's.
And my energy today is different from what it was yesterday, and it's different from tomorrow. And so I can't expect myself to live up to an expectation today of what I did yesterday or who I am tomorrow. What we're talking about is spiritual pliability.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about. We're talking about being so nimble in your soul that you are able to move and duck and weave and function in any situation because you're simultaneously ready and anticipatory of change, but also happy to accept what is happening to you in that given moment. And it's that balance between those two things, I think, that allows you to live out loud, laugh, and be joyful.
Well, yeah. And, it's not getting sucked into anybody else's expectations as well. And one of the things when I work with my regular clients, the first question I ask them, even if I just did a session with them the week before, is I'll be, okay, so, how are you, where are you, and who are you now? And I teach them all, I never assume you're going to be who you were when we ended that phone call last week. In fact, I expect you're going to be somebody other. I know you're going to be somebody other.
And if you try to be the person from last week, then you actually are not doing the spiritual work because you're supposed to grow and change.
Yep. Supposed to shift, supposed to move, supposed to go with it. So your Elmer, what was the term that you used? He is one of the most what playwrights?
I'll help you. It was an article by a young man. Listen, let me help you out.
Come on.
Glasses are coming off. A talented playwright and cultural critic named, I believe his name was Marcus Scott. did an interview of me for Brooklyn Rail magazine in the fall. And
Yes.
he was concerned with my contributions, not only to writing, but also to mentorship, because I run the New Visions Fellowship for young Black transgender playwrights. And it's a national initiative that's in partnership between the National Queer Theater and the Dramatists Guild of America. And one of the quotes that he gave in that interview was that he anticipated that I was becoming one of the most significant playwrights of the decade because of my contributions to LGBTQ people of color in the theater. That was his diagnosis of my significance. And I was very flattered and honored that he was letting people know the importance of the work that I've been doing really for the last 15 to 20 years. So for me, this was a tremendous turning point that cultural critics are starting to place me in the continuum in some way. And I was quite honored that is starting to happen. It let me know that I just had to keep going.
Mm-hmm. So with that significance that has been identified, what is it you would like to most accomplish?
Truthfully, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday about this, and we came to the conclusion that my most significant contribution to this business is truthfully not the work that I have written, but the work that I have done to inspire the next generation. I'm very happy to write, to collaborate, to build productions, to be in community with artists. That's, who doesn't love a show business moment? But what's even more important than that is the legacy you leave and the people that you bring with you. And for me, that's even more significant if I were to identify it now. Mentoring young artistic minds brings me utmost joy.
I think that's always a very interesting thing because, oftentimes people talk about legacy and they talk about leaving something behind when your most immediate legacy is the someones you touched that continue when you're no longer here.
Mm-hmm.
And then beyond that will be the legacy of what you also left that will live even beyond them.
But I'm even talking about the folks that I'm inspiring while I'm here.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Because I ain't worried about what's happening when I'm gone, honey. I ain't going to be here to see that. But I'm interested in who, especially in queer playwriting. We are both at the center of cultural movement, but also deeply in the fringes. And so the queer playwright exists through a network of mentors, many times chosen family, because traditional developmental opportunities don't often come to queer and trans writers because they're not often perceived as bankable or, risk worthy or whatever the case may be that stymies decision makers from doing something other than cats. And so the point of the matter is we have to rely on each other. And it's an oral tradition and it's a community-based tradition, what we write and how we make work. So I see today the influence that the subject matters, that my style of writing, that some of my narrative devices, that some of the questions that I ask of the world through writing, I see it in the people that I'm teaching. And that lets me know that I'm doing something significant because I've created something that's repeatable and something that somebody else finds of use to their own process. If I can be anything, I can be a vessel for somebody else's success. That's more important. Our own success is ephemeral. It comes and goes and it can be purchased. for the fair price of a publicist and a marketing executive. But the lasting thing is what you teach and what you give. When I was in 10th grade, I had a history teacher, and he started off the year with American history. He threw away, he did two things. He took our traditional history book and he threw it away. He said, we're not going to use that. And he had us all buy Howard Zinn, People's History of the United States. And so we read from that perspective. And he said, now the second thing is this. At the end of the year, I'm going to tell you what the key to life is. And, you have to imagine we're 15. So we over here thinking it's going to be something. So everybody else forgot. I put in my calendar to ask that man in June the answer to that question. And I said, you told us that you would tell us what the key to life is. And I said, what is it? He said, to leave this world a better place than when you came, and touch somebody along the way. Now, I was 15. Well, I was 16 then, because the year had passed. I was 16. And here I am 20 years later. I still remember that statement. So I learned something. I don't quite remember what else we talked about in that class, but I remember that in that history class, the lesson that he wanted to teach was, how can you leave the world a better place than when you came into it? And it's through service. It's through stewardship and mentorship.
Well, yeah, and I think that, so first of all, I love that story, because Elmer's been hearing me say for years that I look at the core thing of what I call my ministry is leaving the world a better place than I found it. And that is through keeping in mind, when you make decisions and you step out in the world and you interact, that leaving the world a better place than you find requires you to, in your own way, leave every person you have an interaction with in a better place than you found them, if possible. That it starts not with, doing a foundation or doing a big building or making millions of dollars so you can give hundreds of thousands to charity. That's all great stuff, but it's really about, who did you empower today to have hope? Who did you inspire today to say, I can, and move forward and do this? And so now you talked about who you teach and who you mentor. I would say, add to that, and who you role model to.
And I know that there are a lot of people actively and passively who are looking at me and to me. What I say, what I don't, what I call attention to, what I don't. I know that there are a lot of people in the world that are looking at that. That's the price we pay for being in the public. And I think the obligation that we owe is to show a constructive and meaningful image to the public that does some civic and personal good. One of the things that I because people say, oh, you everyone remembers you, and you always, make an impression in a room. And, I started to look at myself and say, why is it, to dissect, how is it that I have that effect? And I think I understand a little bit more about why I'm like that. It's because I walk into a room and I try and find something good about everybody in there. And I let them know what that is to their face.
I also would suspect that you are an active listener.
All I do is listen. And I listen to what people say and what they don't, and what their bodies say and what they don't, and what the silence between what they say and what they do and what they don't can communicate. You have to be a behaviorist if you want to be a storyteller.
Elmer and I have had this conversation before. Uh,
Mhm.
you know, Alan and I worked on a project, and I was the writer on the project, and I was doing character development and things like this. And I keep on going, you know, because my primary practice for the last 32 years has been as a spiritual coach, counselor, and catalyst. And it's like, I would look at stuff and I would go crazy. I'm like, this is not real. This is not how people actually function in the world. This is, I would go crazy in this. Like, somebody would come in and want to change something, and I'd be like, but this person would not do that. It's inauthentic. It might show better for somebody who wants to buy the script for Hollywood, but it's not actually how, you know, when you understand and you kind of do that, where the people that you are creating in your writing are actual people that would be walking on the street, that you would meet at the cocktail party, that you would bump into at the grocery line. And they're not going to have the Hollywood shine to them that likes to get portrayed, which is one of the things that has devastated so much self-worth and so much self-esteem in the last 40 years. It's more than 40 years. It's just mind-boggling.
And yet there's another way of looking at storytelling too, which is acknowledging that it's complete artifice. You know, and the expressionists did that quite beautifully. They said, all of this is artifice. You're not here in this room with me. You're in a theater watching. Yep. Or you're in a movie house watching. And so there is another way of telling story too. Verisimilitude, which is what you're talking about, is certainly one way of doing it. And then another way, of course, is fantasia. How do I acknowledge the artifice? How do I embrace it? But most importantly, now how do I use it? Because now it's a tool. So now I have an obligation to activate the fantasy and thereby use it. I think for me, now other artists would do something else, but for me, it's how do I use the fantasy to critique the reality that it's running away from or that it's in response to?
Yes. But when you're doing that, you're not trying to play it as if it is supposed to be reality.
Absolutely not. I know that it's fake, and I'm teaching you that it's fake. Every step of the way in the script, I'm teaching you to understand that this is a fantastical world that is in inverse, maybe a shadow world or a light world to the one that you are accustomed to seeing. But in that parallel, there are things that's similar to yours, and you will see the errors and also the boons of your world through that fantasy.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that the one thing Dr. Kevin might be more referring to in this instance is the two-dimensional characters. You know, he always talks about you have somebody on paper and they look so boring because it's just like, you know, X equals Y equals Z, and they have no depth to them. They have no reasoning behind, like, why did someone do something? And you're like, you have no idea. So I think that's part of what he's talking about, is how to make them real, is how to make them, you know, three-dimensional. How to have the dimensions.
You know how, and let me tell you how you do that. You listen. You get on a bus and you just listen to motherfuckers talk. I mean, you really just do. And also you call people. If there's a character that you don't know or whose lived experience you don't know anything about, you call somebody, or you do a reading of a piece. You know, this is one of my big MOs, is taking the literary godlike model out of writing. We don't know everything. We don't know how everybody who peoples our scripts talks or thinks or breathes or fucks. We don't. And for us as writers to think that we are some kind of empirical authority is really just a manifestation of imperialism and colonialism. We need to build from community. You know, the first thing I do whenever I have a first draft of a script, especially when I don't know about the culture, is I bring it back to the people and I say, let's read this and where have I not represented? What do I need to know and learn from this world?
And that is missing a lot in this industry. And that's why when we wrote Kings and Queens, I am part of the queer community, but I'm a guy and I'm not a drag queen. So when we were doing drag kings, there's 2 steps away from me. You get a female and a drag, in the drag world. So that's what we did is, my writer, we connected her with a drag king, an actual drag king, so she could figure out the character, like what would this character do or not. And yeah, it's all about being authentic, and I think sometimes that is missing in a lot of stuff that's written. Is like you said, some cis white male is like, yeah, I know everything. I have this God complex, and I'm the writer, and I'm going to create these characters the way I think they are.
And where authenticity comes from. It comes from humility.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from the openness to discuss what you don't know.
Right. Roger, I'm going to just pipe in a little bit because, of course, they know. I mean, I called you and talked to you. I vet everybody before I bring them on the show because, we've had a couple people, they want to go into politics and they don't like this. And I'm like, you're on the wrong show, that you're not coming on this show. Because growing up in New York City in the 60s and 70s, with anti-gay, anti-woman, pro-Black, anti-Black. I mean, my family had it all. And so I saw things in so many different ways. But as an artist, my family couldn't understand me because, they were from the South. And they are like, the KKK, and they couldn't understand all these different levels of people and the way people think, and to be a little bit flexible. So I became an outcast, which is fine because to me, that's how you learn and grow, is by being the outcast. Right. And so when I went and did a little digging on you and seeing who you were and what you did, I thought, this is someone who's groundbreaking. Because I love learning. I've always loved school. I love people who can teach me, because even though I grew up in the theater and music, I'm actually a musician by trade. I was exposed to so many people who were not allowed to be themselves because we weren't in that time. And some of the things I saw that you said 15 years ago. I went and I just started digging.
Lord, I know the interview you looking at. I know the one you looking at.
I thought back to when Sylvester was one of my favorite performers. And, that was no bueno for my family. They're like, of all the people you could find, you found this guy. And then, of course, Freddie Mercury and Elton John. These people that, they were telling me all this crazy stuff. So when I look back at some of your interviews, some of the things that you said that I found very deep and groundbreaking, I knew we had to have you on because you are a driving force in that community. And I think you're giving power to people who didn't know they didn't have power.
And let me say this to you. I didn't know I had that power either because, the interviews from 15 years ago, first of all, I already knew who I was then, but didn't appreciate that person just yet. So there was a certain aspirational performance of knowing that was going on in those times. But yet what was happening was I was actually tapping into the future person that I would become. Even though I didn't know it, I was actually having a metaphysical union with my future self through public discourse, through thought leadership. In other words, speaking out loud, being a persona was a way into me envisioning and seeing my future self. And what's important about that is that I tried through all of those years, especially in those early years, 15 years ago, what you're talking about, to run away from the personality work because I wanted at that time to be seen and respected as a, quote, man of letters. Now I want to break that down. I want to break down the man part. I wanted to be respected for a very authoritative masculine relationship to our craft. These Arthur Millers and Shakespeare's of the work. And letters, meaning I wanted to have my work and thoughts be respected from the page. But I'm the showgirl who writes it down. I work best and think best when I'm on my feet, when I'm improvising. That's when spirit comes to me. And then my job is to transcribe, to write it down. But to sit and do it the other way, which is to sit in a room and play like I'm God, this kind of cisgender white male authorship model that we were just describing earlier, it doesn't work for me. And it wasn't until I actually embraced that other person, the divine feminine, as we call it in my circle, that embrace allowed me to become a stronger writer. Because it was from not knowing, from sitting in the discomfort of being lost, of being scared, of being in complete confusion and chaos. At the beginning of a play, there's the quiet before the storm, and then there's the storm, and then there's the storm after the storm. How do you embrace that whole psychosocial and spiritual roller coaster that you go on? You sit in mantra of acceptance. You sit in I don't know, and I'm here to receive. Mm-hmm. And that's something that a performer knows. Before we get up, we don't know shit. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to do the performance that you did yesterday, that's when you're going to go up on your lines, because you ain't the same motherfucker today that you was yesterday. Because today your light bill came in. Yeah. Today
that'll throw you. Your light bill will throw you on stage, trust me.
Today you got a text from your landlord talking about this month he is going to be charging you that late fee. So you automatically already ain't the same person you was yesterday. So quit trying to live in what used to be.
Right.
So the person that you saw 15 years ago was dreaming of becoming the person I am now. The person I am now is excited. I'm not dreaming about being anybody else because I'm living in this moment and loving it. I'm excited to be exactly who I am right now. I'm excited to learn who I will become, but I'm not studying that person. Sure, I have ideas and hopes and dreams and, aspirations, and some of them are, internal and some of them are outward. Some of them are Western and some of them are not. Success markers. But I'm just enjoying exactly where I am right now. For once in my life, I can say to you, I'm satisfied right where I am and I'm enjoying it. And I'm
taking notes.
I ain't trying to plan.
I've been taking notes.
Listen, I ain't planning nothing. I'm just here.
So you talk about your journey in discovering the divine feminine.
Yes.
How do you see your journey as the divine masculine?
My journey as the divine masculine, I think, is about reconciliation with the masculine figures in my life. How do I find empathy and understanding for my younger sibling? How do I find empathy and understanding for my dad, with whom I am bound at the hip and yet very oil and water? To understand them as men and really internalize. There was a moment recently where I said, I understand why my brother thinks the way he does. And it was like a little glimmer into masculine insight. That's where I am with it now. I can't speak any more about it than that, because that's literally all I know. If I can understand them, that's certainly a start to something.
Well, and there's a very big difference, as somebody who's worked with divine feminine and divine masculine energy. For me, the first thing was to recognize most of what we are exposed to is the damaged feminine and the damaged masculine. And that if you start with the humanity, this is the damaged, and then understanding the difference between the essence of who they are and being able to separate the damage that they stepped into to survive. It's always about survival.
That's right.
We're always trying to figure out, when we don't have a strong center core of who we are, and okay with the fact that whoever we are, we ain't going to be tomorrow. And and knowing that it is this evolving process. When people talk about, well, I feel like I really know myself. And I said, well, that had to be an old self, because your new self, you haven't finished discovering yet. And as soon as you think you know that one, it's going to be different again. You're always going to be looking in the rearview mirror.
Because that's how time functions.
Yep. So, but it's going in and recognizing this is divine working in a damaged form to survive the world that they needed to survive. And so I have to step beyond that into the essence of understanding, and then also see how that damage affected me when it's somebody that's close. That of course that damage is going to affect me, but in understanding how the damage affected them, and always assuming they were doing the best they could with what they had, without making that a gag-worthy excuse for forgiveness. Because there is no forgiveness without real understanding. Not just they did the best they could with what they had.
No.
Bullshit.
No. Not dismissive. Right. Not dismissive, but intrinsic. To really internalize. They did the best they could. What does that mean for somebody to do everything within their power to stay above water, physically or metaphysically, with the survival instincts and the coping mechanisms that their socialized world gave them?
But in my healing of relationship with them, then I must understand that damage and recognize it's not their damage, is not them, but it is the them that I dealt with. And the more compassion and empathy I have about the damage and understanding, the more I can truly recognize how little, if any of it, ever had to do with me.
You got me taking notes. That's power. That's power. And I would be a liar if I said to you, oh, I'm there. I'm all Buddha Zen about it. I'm not. I'm still working on that. I'm working on depersonalizing damage and damaged self from the essence of person. I'm working on that. And I know that also probably most likely affects my romantic relationship. Ooh, Rain, we talking about love now. Ooh, child, we talking about love.
Love. Don't you just love to be in love? I love to be in love.
Well, I think I love the idea of being in love. And I think a lot of people love that idea of being in love.
They do.
I think people are in love with the idea of being in love. But love is painful. And I don't think people really want to sit with the pain of love.
It's the man is built, man as in man, men, female as in humanity. Man, when I say that. Humanity is built to always be in love with something. It is a chemical necessity in our brain to have happiness and joy. It doesn't always have to be a person. We can be in love with a character we're creating. We can be in love with a new production we're doing, or we can be in love with a new author or a new best friend. And, so often, because I do a lot of couples work, and it's like, I say, they're going to be in and out of love with you, and you're going to be in and out of love with them. But if you want to have that long-term loving relationship, understand what they're in love with when they're not in love with you, and meet them there. And when you're in love with something else, bring it to them and have them meet you there.
And meet them there. I was just talking to one of these lovers the other day, child. I said, I can't have this relationship with you. I said, because I'm always feeling like I have to doll myself up to meet you. And the things that I do, the things that are ingested, the things that are consumed, both chemical and otherwise, in order to reach a place where I feel comfortable in sitting with you, are not sustainable. And so therefore we are not together.
Well, I would invite you to always remember this. You can be as madly in love with somebody as you want, but at the end of the day, it is not meant for you if you don't like who you are when you're with them.
And that's why I had to let that man go in that context. Because I said, who I have to become in order to sit here with you is not healthy for me in that context. Now we can sit there and be bridge club girls real quick, and we can sit there, and be the ladies who lunch, RIPs, Sondheim, but in terms of that, me bearing a portal into forever through you and for you and with you, and that never happened. But I'm just saying, I can't. No, we're not going to be sitting here on this bender.
You should never actively have to become something for someone you love.
That's right.
Passively become a better self when you're with the right person.
That's it.
And that is what you need to keep in mind. And that goes back to, it isn't whether I love you or not. It's, who am I when I am with you? Who are you? And are we creating the synergy and being our best selves?
And
then
that's
you know
what I'm
you are where you belong.
And thank you for that. Because when that happens, then I will know that I is in love. Then I will know. I know we're recording this also. At least I hope we are.
We are.
Because I'm going to need to listen to this segment right here for my life. This is, y'all don't realize, this is washing me clean. I needed this. Thank you.
Well, good. We're going to have you back to wash you again, because I got all these notes and stickies, and I got some questions, and I got some cleansing going on here. I'm ready.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we got less than 2 minutes. So yeah, definitely, Rain. I know we have a lot of people that want to come on next year.
No. We're going to get Roger back on.
Yes. I would say put Roger to the top of the list.
You were at the top of the list. We're going to get that. Yes, we're going to get that happening.
So for next show, it's our last show of the 2021 year. We have decided for our listeners that it'll just be the three of us.
Oh, news to me.
We decided that.
You decided it.
Did I?
Yes.
Will somebody tell me what I think?
You're like, I think it should just be the three of us, and we can clean up the year and blah, blah, blah.
Sounds like something I would say.
What kind of cookie did you go get? That sounds like a different kind of cookie monster.
Cookie.
Yes, so, it'll just be the three of us.
So I think a part of what I want to do in that show is to look back over this year's guests. It doesn't have to be a long piece of that show, but I just like to look back and just briefly touch on who we had and who we want back and whatnot. And so we got 30 seconds left.
Don't be caught touching them. We don't run that kind of media no more. Those
yes,
people go
we
to
do.
jail now.
Oh, well. Ramifications, small things.
You got me over here taking notes, Dr. Kevin. I can't even believe this. I'm shook to the core, baby. So I know we have 5 seconds on the clock, but I want to say something to you all.
Yeah,
thank you all so much for inviting me into this beautiful dialogue about how to find joy. It is an honor and a pleasure to be with you all. And I feel as though I have learned so much and my spirit has grown so much through this conversation. I'm grateful and excited to continue the dialogue.
Awesome.
We are too.
So hang on with us. Let me, we have a video file to play us out as well, an outro.
And Roger, thank you. Thank you for helping those that are in such great need of mentoring and helping to show the beauty of who they are to a world that they make uncomfortable, as they should.
Dr. Kevin, if there's one thing I know, it's that I love what it means to embrace discomfort, because from that we grow, we learn.
Right.
Absolutely.
Thanks for watching or listening to the Laughing, Loving, and Alive show. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the show, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or support us with Buy Me a Coffee. To catch all of the latest from Laughing, Loving, and Alive, you can follow us on Instagram at Laughing, Loving, and Alive, and on Facebook at Laughing, Loving, and Alive. Thanks again, and see you next time.
Yay! Yay! Again!
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to